Roxanne.
How are you, Mark? I'm good.
For a little while.
It's a long stinking drive from La Crosse. But it was really a good one.
Did you see David Marzenti?
Yes.
Yes,
We
I-
did, I was gonna tell you.
Yes,
I saw him last night. He said he was
very intelligent. He's a
Yeah.
judge advocate.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, Jay.
talked about it.
And he has land up here.
Yeah. He told me to apply for corporate counsel. He said no.
No.
That was a good time.
He's a very smart guy.
He told me to move back up here.
Oh, what county was he there for?
Oh, darn it. I don't know, you have to ask him.
I told him he's gonna be there. I told Karen.
Uh-huh.
Right.
What county was he with?
David Marzenti was there.
Junior.
Are we ready?
Bill's ready to go.
Of course he does. It's time. It's numbers. Okay, it's 6 o'clock. I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Rise for the pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Kristen.
Ready?
Here.
Francis.
Here.
Youngs.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Hager.
Here.
Schwartz.
Here.
Crawl.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
Bose.
Here.
Lauer.
Here.
Luchen.
Here.
Hillard.
Here.
Wolf.
False. Knowledge that the meeting was properly noticed and posted.
I certify it was.
Okay, we need an approval of the minutes from August 27, 2024 as presented.
I move to approve the minutes of August 27th.
We have a motion from Roxanne.
I'll second.
We have a second from Doug Storch. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Do we have any communications?
We do actually. I just wanted to let you all know, I included them in your packets. I received 5 letters from individuals regarding that survey that they were supposed to do online, but people apparently felt better sending them to my office, which I thought was still great. They had some really good ideas. Some of them were same. They mentioned UW Extension, the ADRC building, overtime, GIS and emergency management being cut part-time or rolled into one, remove extra income given to forestry administrator, human services freezing their wages, eliminate positions that were created during COVID, IT department comparing them to before with just computer doctors. The highway CD, they have questions on that. Cut newly created positions. Look at vacation, six flex time, comp time, and if employees are using all their time off in 6 months, and is their position necessary? They asked about campground fees and if they're comparable to neighboring counties. They also mentioned employees receiving large wage increases and then went to salary and then went back to hourly, and if that was adjusted or if they got to keep their salaries. Job descriptions were completed. So has a study been performed to determine if some positions are needed or being completed by others, and maybe that those positions can be combined? So those were just a few that they had mentioned. I thought would be nice to note. Also, Neil Clemmy is here, and he has high school students this evening that are interested in being part of the Iron County Youth Leadership Council. That's
I
all I
also
have.
have about 30-some responses on the online survey for that.
There you go. I was
So
going to ask you, but you were gone. So
I do have
Yep.
30-some responses.
So we'll compile those and
Yeah,
share those.
They're not, the deadline's not next
Should we let him
Friday.
talk? Okay. We'll let you talk at public comment, okay, Neil?
Okay.
Okay. Well, I want to thank the employees for them ideas. Some of them we'll look at them. Some of them, we'll look at them. Thank you for participating in our survey, I guess. Okay, we'll move to number 7, committee, department heads and chairman's report. Start with you, Kurt.
Okay, I got a couple things. First of all, I read in the paper that Steve Kubacki passed away earlier this month. Steve's a Hurley native and worked many years in public administration, most recently before retirement in the Green Bay area. And Steve reached out to me early on this year after attending the January and February board meetings. Him and I spoke and met on several occasions. He offered me some sound advice, some overall context, and encouragement. He also referred me some pretty good contacts. He was on the list of people I wanted to call to give an update on the progress we've made over the last couple of months. And I just wanted to say, thank you, Steve, and I will miss not having the next talk. In finance reached a tentative agreement with the police union on a new 3-year contract. Both sides need to review and sign off on the final language changes. The goal is to complete that by the next finance meeting, bring it to the full board for approval in October. Thanks to Randy, the chief negotiator for the union, along with the deputies in attendance for their input at each session. Thanks also to Murph and the finance committee members for their input, with a special shout out to Roxanne, who served as our lead spokesperson for the group and did much of the legwork summarizing the data. Scott Sturhagen, partner in charge at CLA, the audit firm, provided an overview of the 23 audit. The audit was issued with an unqualified opinion, meaning the numbers in the audit can be relied on to be materially accurate. Scott also mentioned there were no disputes or disagreements with management, and there were no inappropriate transactions identified. 2 very important statements you always want to hear from your auditor. That being said, Scott also did point out some areas for the county to improve on. Prior to the finance committee meeting, Kristen, Roxanne, and I met with Scott for about 90 minutes to review the details behind the 55 journal entries CLA needed to make in order to issue that unqualified audit opinion. My 4 takeaways on what the county might realistically work on are as follows. For the 2nd year in a row, the audit identified a material weakness in internal control over financial reporting. A material weakness is the most significant of all audit findings. It means the financial statements presented during the year cannot be relied on to be materially accurate. Material weakness means the organization, in this case the county, is classified as a higher risk auditee. CLA is required to test 40% of all government programs instead of 20% because of the high risk classification. The additional audit testing results in higher audit costs. County receives too much money from the state and the feds to ever want to put any of that money in jeopardy, and we should work to eliminate the material weakness. Number 2, the county should set up a special revenue fund to account for CDBG activity beginning of calendar year 2024. Currently, the county does not record that activity, relying solely on the auditors to make those entries. And furthermore, those transactions are handled outside the accounting system, and it's never a good practice to process cash receipts and disbursements outside your accounting structure and established internal controls. Number 3 is bank accounts. There's a number of bank accounts outside the general fund that we may need to clean up a little bit and make sure we're tying out and tying back to the ledger and recording interest. That reconciliation could happen in the clerk's or treasurer's office, but some adjustments are needed. The county addressed those 3 items, reducing the 55 entries, recording CDBG activity, working on the bank recs. I think it would go a long way to eliminate that material weakness and put the county on a path towards generating more accurate financial statements during the year. 4th item relates to reporting for highway activity. As Scott mentioned, almost all counties and larger municipalities fund highway costs out of the debt levy dollars and segregate their reporting of highway activity to identify county road capital improvement costs. Iron County historically has used base levy dollars to fund highway costs and does not segregate the reporting. When you understand the limited revenue growth that comes from the base levy, you soon realize the importance of taking on as many costs as possible away from the base levy and putting it into the debt levy to pay. I think making that reporting change would help us do that. Most of those items I kind of went through are some are basic, some are mid-level accounting type activity, especially identifying the receivables, unearned income, and accrued expenses. But it certainly will be a change, particularly in the clerk's office from how the county's recorded certain activity in the past. As Scott mentioned, most of the year-end information related to receivables, accrued expenses is available at the department head level. They know and have the information. It's just that historically the county's chosen not to take the next step and record that activity. So at the next finance meeting, we'll dig into some more of that report, decide as a group what we think is important, and then work with Krista to determine what she and Kathy think they can accomplish and see where we may need some outside support, if any, to fill in the gaps. The last thing we talked about, of course, the 24 and 25 budget. Last month, we looked at the operating budget and made some difficult decisions. Tonight, we'll discuss the debt and the importance of increasing the levy each year. And then next month, we'll talk about capital improvements and finalize payroll changes. Summarize that entire budget for a November vote. So more details in the agenda items coming up on that.
Thank you, Kurt. Nothing? Roxanne?
Couple meetings, extension, we revised the 2025 budget to remove the horticulturist position that we decided upon last month. Also, all of the various staff gave updates, 4-H, food-wise, participated in the Hurley High School open house. It was good to see that collaboration. Becky and Neil worked on a babysitter training that was asked for, so that's another good one for our community. And Joe Miller talked about the survey that he's done supporting the Mercer 20-year comprehensive plan. And he's also continuing to plan the entrepreneur boot camp in January and February of 2025, the military ball. And Joe Miller also hosted a USDA grant meeting, and there will be a planning event, a grant event, informational event in Hurley and in Mercer on the 30th of October, and that will help homeowners with various things like how they can get grant funding to remediate lead in their homes or various housing issues. So those were all the good things going on with the extension. And then, I assume you're gonna talk about the Memorial Building?
Yeah.
Okay, you want me to?
Sure.
Okay, just real quickly, we're moving forward on QuickBooks financials and continuing to keep those up to date and looking for somebody to take that over then. Talking about several repairs that we're working on how we're going to get those done for various things like railings and some other issues. And then also continue to work on the nonprofit status so that we can get that all remedied. Then library. So quarterly, the Northern Waters Library System meets, and several of the counties sit on that library system committee. And the head of the Northern Waters Library System has resigned and is moving to a job in Minnesota. So we are now looking for a replacement. Several of us are on that hiring committee. So if you know anybody with a library, a master's in library science, who might want to be that head of the Northern Waters Library System, there will be an open position posted in not too long, and the hiring committee starting to work on that. Then the final thing was a couple of us in the room, Rick and Karen and I, just returned from the Wisconsin Counties Association annual meeting. I'm sure many of you have attended that in the past. When you were new, it's free the first year, so why not go? It's in La Crosse, which is a beautiful city. For all of you younger people around the room, if you ever get the chance to go to La Crosse, it's on the Mississippi River, and it's an absolutely beautiful city. So this meeting had conferences on everything from rights and responsibilities of us as board members to the elected officials or constitutional officers. They had mock board meetings to teach Robert's Rules of Order. They had IT cyber incident sessions. I mean, they just had such a variety every session. So there were, how many sessions? 5 sessions the first day, 2 sessions today. And you could pick from 4 or 5 different sessions every time you went. So there was just so much to do. And what we realized, or what I feel like I realized, is that there are so many resources out there. Like I found so many other board members, who were talking in the sessions about the same kind of issues that we're facing here at our board. So there are extensive resources for ideas, for training, for information, information on new laws like Act 207, information on new things like innovation grants, which we probably should be looking at our next finance meeting, because that could be money that we're getting from federal or state entities, actually it's from the Department of Revenue. So that's the specific entity for that innovation grant. And just aside from that, networking with the same kind of people like us at other counties, so that we could find out, hey, what are you doing about housing? We were sitting at a table last night, and it was where Slinger is located. Washington County was talking about how they are solving their housing crisis. Very unique ideas, We're not the first ones to have these issues. And it was just, I feel like I'm just bubbling, because I feel like I'm coming back with hope and ideas. And I highly encourage those of you who have never gone to the WCA annual conference to go, because they're there to help us and they're a tremendous resource. And I highly recommend that we continue to use them. I know several of you do in the room already use those resources. Several of the people we met were given attaboys to our staff, so I know who's been talking to them, because they were like, oh yeah, you guys are great here. So it was just delightful. I highly recommend you guys go if you get a chance. So that's it for me.
Well, thank you for attending it for us. Sounds like you're full of energy. Bring it back to the team.
Need that every once.
Carl? Rick?
Economic development, doing some legwork. We have a meeting October 1st, and then we're going to report back. A lot of great ideas, and everything that we were asked for the Wisconsin County Association will be online Monday. All the slides and everything, so it will be accessible for all of us.
Thank you. Pat?
Yeah, I'll start off with recycling. We had our meeting and trying to help out as far as the budget, and people aren't gonna like what we had to do, but we had enough to recycle down 1 day a week. We only be held 2 days a week instead of 3. And as far as the position, I think it's gonna be filled by Harley Club. And zoning are, we're still going strong, we're still getting lots of applications. And we're trying to do a lot of the work on the septic systems right now as far as getting them up to par. The airport is doing fine, right?
That's good.
They're still not the growing things, but they'd like to get in 2 fights a day. But it's, the way it's showing right now, it's not gonna happen. Maybe the end of the year. That'd be 2 flights from each end, Chicago to 2 hours.
And they're still gonna do it? Are they still gonna be able to do it?
And the numbers are up. If
Okay.
it's going like it is, it's possible that we will make it.
All right.
And, yeah, it's all I have. Nothing else going on.
Thank you, Pat. Karen?
Got a couple things. This is for Human Services. We had a new board member who joined. We welcomed her, Jennifer Rye, and she replaced Carol Matson, who recently retired. Very nice addition to the team. Overtime is incurred for income maintenance team due to needs for the regional lead for the Northern Income Maintenance Consortium. The overtime is completely covered by the consortium, but it was based on what was going out with the consortium. Children placement, that one of the placements that we've been watching for a while has been postponed. Actually, the court case has been postponed until February. Looking at Regional Hosting Authority, 2 contracts were approved related to fencing for 2 families with autistic children at least for long range, so that was approved. Discussion on vacation time, transferring from one employee to another, past practice, it's not in the employee handbook, and we didn't approve that at the meeting. Maybe considered for the future handbook. There was a draft RFP presented for counseling therapy service, currently with Northland Counseling. The RFPs will be delayed until after the budget approved. Review the budget for 2025, children and family update. Chris Carroll provided support for social workers preparing for national exams. One person already took the exam and passed. Currently 4 children are in out of home care, which is a reduction of 1. Aging and disability update, Mercer and Sherman Meal Program will be conducting a survey of the community to determine how best to meet the needs of the community after the Mercer quit. Public meetings will be held in Hurley on October 16th and Mercer on October 9th to review the aging plan. October, the Human Services Board will approve the plan at the October meeting. I also attended a WCA conference, really enjoyed it, very knowledgeable people there. There was a couple of things that I really enjoyed, meeting with other counties, met with Ashland and Bayfield, and they really want to join force with us on the innovation grants. So that would be something that we may want to consider on how to work better collaboratively with other counties, being possibly a tri-county approach to how we manage certain things. There's some options that were shared of how you can do that, and actually there's some presentations from other counties. Talked about dispatch as being possibly one. Child support is another one. Brown and O'Connor counties are currently doing that and finding it very successful. Human Services, Health Department, Emergency Management, and even Veterans, those are things to consider for the future. So, other things that I attended, the 988 number, which is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, is actually in the state. There's about a 47% participation rate that's going on with the counties at this point in time, and they're looking to have it at 100% in the future. The 988 is a phone number that you can dial. It's a federally funded program, federally driven, in which a person who is in crisis can just dial 988. No 8-digit, 7-digit, 11 digits. It's only a 988 number, like a 911. They're hoping they have that in the future, that becomes the tip of the tongue when somebody is in a crisis situation. So the dispatch center currently is in Green Bay, and it has to have local resources to support that program. But it's something that we really need to consider for the future. And again, that's federally funded. So 100% is the goal, 100% of counties involved. I also attended a session on the county airport for Sheboygan and airport. They are talking about how well they've taken their little airport, is now an international airport, and how it has grown. They have a future plan to be levy-free that is no longer funded by the county, but that it's actually self-funds itself. It was very interesting and something that we may want to take notice of for the future. And then I want to give just a brief update on the Mercer Clinic is reopening. Family Physicians have purchased the Mercer Clinic building and is planning on reopening the clinic in the second quarter of 2025. This is a federally qualified health clinic which provides care to all of those in need in the community, with insurance or without. The payment for services are provided through federal funding, insurance payments, Medicare, Medicaid, etc. The clinic is planning on having on-site physician, hopefully, that's always a chance, but actually probably opportunity has it right now is the time to actually be, so many systems have reduced physicians in other areas of the state and country. And they really want the physician and a possibly nurse practitioner to be located in the community. The clinic will have a pharmacy, and depending on the type of service that's dependent on the future. They'll have a laboratory services and more services to come in the future. There's been a lot of people outreaching that really want to be engaged with this clinic. I had a chiropractor approach me saying, hey, would they consider? So there's lots of opportunity that's coming from this. So, there's a foundation that's being formed. I'm actually leading that process to support that clinic as well as other health and wellness services in our region. And the regions include the Thomas Sherman, Mercer, Alma, Prescott, Winchester, and Manitowish Waters. So there's more to come in the future. So that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Karen, you're busy. Dougie.
The fair board, we got, starting on winterizing all the buildings and everything. We're already planning for next year already. We're working on the stage, next couple of weeks we'll get that built. And things are moving forward. We have Courtney here to give our financial report, since we came from the last meeting, and she can give everybody the numbers.
Yeah, I can do that.
Go ahead.
So I don't have the full financials yet, just because we're still waiting on a few outstanding invoices. But as of right now, our net income that we made over the course of the 2024 fair was $33,632, which is pretty good for a year where we had some rain on Saturday, which sucks to be blunt. That's our big day, but we still averaged 2,700 attendees on Saturday despite that weather, which give us a grand total of attendance of 6,135. We saw a record number of weekend passes for non-exhibitors. This was our second year of doing this, and the reason why we decided to do this non-exhibitor pass is we try to make it as economical as possible for people to come to the fair. We don't want you to have to decide whether you want to go have fun with your family or put food on the table, so we try to keep the cost low and make it as all-encompassing as possible. So when you walk through the gate, you pay your fee, you get your carnival rides, you get your walk through the barns, you get your grandstand shows. The only thing you have to pay for is your carnival ride or carnival games, and your food. So we try to do that to make sure that people from Iron County can enjoy the fair, because we're celebrating what Iron County is, and we want to make sure that we keep that cost low. So with that weekend pass, we ended up finding that people liked to be able to pay in advance. They didn't have to wait in line. They could just show their wristband, bypass Paul, go have some fun without having to wait in line, and that was very successful. We had over 400 weekend passes that were sold, which was really great compared to the less than 100 we sold last year. We had 168 exhibitors, which was down a little bit from last year, but I think the increase in non-exhibitor passes was to account for that. I've often found that sometimes people will say, oh, I would like a discounted rate to get into the fair, so they quickly scramble on Friday afternoon to exhibit something. They'll pull some flowers out of somebody else's yard or pull a potato or whatever. So we found that while the exhibitors themselves were down, the quality of the exhibits and the number of exhibits increased dramatically. We had one woman who was our champion exhibitor. She had entered over 150 items. She was Penny Rakowski Lutz from Saxon, and every single one of her items got first or second place. So that was pretty great. We also had a champion gardener. That was Leslie Colasar. She entered 55 items, and every single one of them got a first or a second place ribbon. So like I said, the quality was outstanding in that building. And great work from Doug and everybody else on the board for being able to pull together a really great exhibitor booth. One of the things that they learned at the Wisconsin Association of Fairs is that photography is a huge exhibitor selling point. So Doug had the idea to put up plexiglass to really display the photos in a really dramatic way so people could actually see them versus a bunch of frames just on a table. And it was incredibly successful. We got a lot of compliments about how well it looked. We also got a lot of great compliments on how clean the buildings were, how clean the bathrooms were, just people being able to see the work that we're putting in, and we wanting to continue to do that throughout this winter and into next year, as Doug said. We do have another thing we'd like to announce. I wanted to message you today, Kristen, to find out what a half payment would be for the loan we took out for the stage, because we would like to make a half payment since we were successful this year. We're really excited to be able to get that sorted and be able to give back just as quickly as we promised, because we knew that we were going to have a great year. So one other thing to note that I just want to have on record, one of the things that we've talked about as a board is just making sure that we're constantly preparing and putting money back into the fairgrounds and consistently being able to prep for future fairs as we sort of toe this line between the classic Iron County Fair and continuing to strive to be bigger and better every year. One of the things that we, of course, are doing, which you guys are aware of, is our 100th in 2027. There might be a little snafu with that. There is some road construction planned for downtown Saxon in 2027. So we're hoping that we can be a part of the conversation, whether or not, the project gets moved forward, gets moved back, if there's changes into the detour route, so that way we can make sure we let our vendors know, we let our exhibitors know, and we also can let attendees know so they don't feel like they can't come out to the fairgrounds because, there might be road construction that hinders them getting there a little bit. So other than that, everything's pretty good so far. So we're really excited. And thank you guys again for the continued support where many other counties are closing their fairs or, severely declining in their fairs. We're continuing to go forward and get bigger and better, and we're really excited about that.
Thank you. Thank you for your committee, our fair. I know people that went to Marengo, Ashland County, went to Iron River, Bayfield County. Yours was by far the best. Like you said, you can go in, kids can go on them rides, don't have to pay. It's already paid for. Pay for your games, pay for your food, our in your facilities are great. Doug does a great job. Doug's our board supervisor. He's working a lot and hands-on with stuff. I mean, Roxanne, you're working with numbers, Kurt. Dougie's our hands-on guy. He's putting in water lines. He's looking at the memorial building lights. He's doing that kind. That's why together all of us are doing something.
And to one more thing to mention too, we've started our storage season as well. So between Kirk and Doug, they're putting things in and getting that all sorted. And big shout out to Kirk for taking that on and sending out all of the letters to everybody, because that's a good revenue source for us. That's always consistent, regardless of what the weather is for a weekend. So we're pretty excited about that.
It is. Thank you. Scott.
All right, Murph Forestry back on September 3rd. Stumpage today, $1,221,222. That's actually $220,000 more than we had 20 days ago. So it's coming in. And last year at this time was $1,195,768. So we're plus 25,564, roughly in that area. So that's a good news coming forward. We have a bid opening October 10th. We have 20 sales up, minimum bid value of $920,794 here for the next year. Approve those. We approved the sale and location for the Log-A-Load for Kids, which is going to be held October 3rd and 4th. In the Pence ball field. I'm sure the schools will be going, numerous schools will come to that and see how the timber industry supports people here in northern Wisconsin and throughout our area. There are all kinds of exhibits, and eventually they knock down some trees and donate the proceeds to the kids for that stuff.
Scott, I would like to say that all of the county board members are also invited to attend that next Thursday or Friday. But just stop on by anytime after 9.
October 3rd and 4th,
Yeah.
and you'll be really amazed at some of the things that you just think you're chopping trees and doing that. There's a whole lot more going on. They have a whole lot of exhibitors there that show you where they go with some of this stuff, so we've been to a few of them, eh, Billy?
Yeah,
Or
Joe
Billy?
Bustle.
Yeah. So that's coming up here. We approved a brush dump site in the county forest over in town of Anderson by Upson for getting rid of some stumps and some other brush. Transferred a pickup truck to the health department to try to save some cash. Won't have to purchase a vehicle for our Lotzer. What does she do? She's the food. Well, that's a fancy term, yeah. Environmental health specialist. So she put on a lot of miles, going to all the restaurants, checking out if they're in compliance with everything. So we transferred a pickup truck to them. And then we approved the 2025 budget for next year after a few more cuts. Okay, Murph, I think that's all I got for you there.
Thank you.
Oh, no, one more thing on carbon credit project. We had 3 groups, right, Eric, interested in our
Three
forest,
different ones, right?
and the consulting company Anu is gonna be in our forest on October 2nd to film a promotional marketing video to send out to those people who are interested in buying carbon credits on Harrington Forest.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Was that in the Penn's ball field, you said?
Yeah, Penn's ball field.
There'll be lots of signs, and lots of buses. They're expecting 1,000 kids over the 2 days.
And also weather's better.
Yeah, last
More fun in the rain, Bill.
All the kids lost their shoes in one hole.
And I want to thank the forestry committee for giving that truck up, helping through all this stuff. Forestry is giving up. They do what they can. Thank you. Bill, what do you got?
I got a short presentation. We had a highway meeting on September 17th. We went into closed session, we discussed 3 employee evaluations, and everybody seems really happy. We're happy with the new administration. We also went into closed session to interview 3 people for patrolman position. We hired 1, pending 3 employee physical. Also, employee number 31 is done with his 6-month probation period, and we upped his wage to 100% now. And also, we discussed the bike trail on County 8J in Mercer. And Iron County has the authority for bike paths because they're considered traffic. And our commissioner wants an opportunity for the highway department to do all the work on our right of way. And that's all I have.
Okay, the bike path's coming up and everything. What do you got, Ryan?
Land and Water did not meet, but Heather sent me an update today on some projects and the fact that Zach Wilson was done at the end of last month. And his program is buttoned up, caught up, organized, and for easy reporting at the end of the year. They completed the town of Anderson culvert replacement on Tyler Forks River. Big project, 21 feet wide by 6 feet high by 45 feet long, funded through LWCD cost share and an Enbridge grant. They're organizing the last cost share projects for the year with forestry at Lake of the Falls and the town of Sherman. Completed 8 site visits for shoreline property owners who requested site assessments. And are working with lake associations across the county to gather and learn from each other about what issues other lakes are dealing with and where collaborations can take place. So that's it for Land and Water Conservation. IT committee met and discussed the budget items. First thing was we reviewed the 24 budget actuals to date, and we were pretty close. Danny predicted that we would be at or below by the end of the year, based on what, there were some big expenses coming up, but he knew he wasn't going to spend whatever those were. And then we discussed some ways to control costs or cut costs or save costs, and one of those was possibly opening up the IT support for competitive bidding, and also possibly taking the computer equipment that we have to replace that's coming up and bundling it in such a way that it could all be counted as a capital expenditure rather than parts and pieces. I don't know what that translates to, but it'd be a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, we're
Windows,
getting IT
Mac.
squared away, we're straightening that kind of all that. Thank you. Jamie, you got anything?
Yeah, we did. Aging Advisory Committee met last week. Olson gave the meal site reports and provided updates for the Mercer Senior Center with recent changes to staff. Positions of Kangas, the cook, and Emerson, cook aide, most recently left, and Olson discussed data collection, noting decline in meals and community brainstorming meeting with Mercer residents and stakeholders was held in late August to determine why meal numbers were down in the Mercer location. Lauer discussed feedback from community brainstorming meeting, and Olson discussed a community survey that would be going out to collect more information and feedback on what Mercer and Springstead members would like from the nutrition program. Committee members asked about rent paid to the Mercer Center, and Olson stated that per the meal site agreement in place, a 30-day written notice would need to be provided to stop rental payments from occurring. Lauer noted that Callie Bucknell, director of the Human Services Department, and Olson should move forward with the notice, considering no meals would be provided out of the Mercer Senior Center and budgetary necessity. During the interim, Olson discussed the meals will be delivered from the Hurley Senior Center for home delivery without interruption. In Iron Belt, Matson expressed gratitude for the return of the Iron Belt cook, Susan Nolan, who was on medical leave. He discussed that initially meals were down, however, work with Nolan returning, they are increasing. Springstead, Calvin Patzner, expressed some recent complaints from members about the quality of food and options for alternative options besides mashed potatoes. Patzner expressed meal inconsistency in the couple months, raising concerns with attending members and loss of attendance due to inconsistency. But Olson noted feedback from Springstead members would also be collected to determine what options they would like to see moving forward. We're going to get them some different meal plans. Right, Karen?
That's right.
Okay.
You people in Springstead don't like potatoes or what? Jeez.
For Saxon location, Tom Innes expressed also gratitude for Nolan's return. Innes attended the meal site that week and asked for members' feedback or issues, noting none, and glad to have Nolan back. For Hurley, myself, I haven't visited recently, but I do speak with Diane, the cook, often. Things appeared to be going well, and Olson noted numbers are down for Hurley, but that can be expected in the summer with more activities going on. She did give a meal per site report along with nutrition site data and nutrition revenue. She mentioned that the data chart should, Olson provided that the meals served at that location and days of operation and revenue. Olson noted year-to-date revenues totals are down just a little bit, $3,826 from last August. Then she gave an update for staff caseloads and reports. And under transportation data and revenue, Olson provided revenue data reflecting the increase in collected revenue sources from providers of Iris and Inclusa.
Inclusive.
Don't ask me what that means, or what that stands for, rather. Long-term care Medicaid providers, kind of truncates around there. Olson noted since becoming an authorized provider, this has helped the transportation program to receive higher reimbursement rates from members. And she noted working with the Northwest Wisconsin Cancer Center to provide riders to Iron County residents to Ashland for cancer treatments. And the NWCC has grant funds to reimburse counties for their transportation services for cancer patients attending. There was some new 2025 GUAR updates or policy updates, but that essentially would allow for counties to prioritize who needs senior meals the most, determined by their nutrition risk assessment. Olson noted that she needs more time to review those materials and how the process would work, but requested feedback from committees on other communities about options to use the new assessment process, and we didn't feel at that time that we wanted to implement that option going forward right now. For the aging plan going forward from 2025 to 2027, she provided committees with a 3-year plan. Olson discussed each goal based on a goal section, feedback collected, and Olson noted 2 public hearing opportunities will be held in Mercer and in Hurley for review of the full plan. The aging plan will go to ICHS board for approval in October and final submission to GUAR by November 6th of 2025. Lastly, ADRC outreach events. Trista provided 2 flyers for the care clinic that will be held at the Hurley Senior Center October 23rd, that is held in partnership with the health department. And Olson provided flu shot clinics for the Mercer and Springstead area. And that was our meeting.
Thank you. Mario, welcome.
All my meetings were covered.
Have covered. Paul,
I got one thing for the fair board. We got blacktop handicap.
okay.
It really looks nice now. And on the recycling, we had electronics drive and pickup, and that was really good. And also to save money, we're going down to only 2 days a week, 6 hours a day, and see if that helps the county.
Thank you. Can't hurt. Okay. Public comment. Neil, this is you.
Okay, I'm just gonna introduce, well, I'm not gonna introduce them, but all of these kids, I went to the school last week and asked youth to sign up for the Youth Leadership Council, and I had 20-some young people come up to the front of the room and sign up. So I'm actually trying to find more places to put them. I have 2 for the Fair Board. I have 2 for the Leaders Association. Hit Theater would like to have some young people serve on the board. I've got 8, 6, 10 for the committees and the board here. So they'd like to start attending meetings next month. I'm gonna get some training in scheduled and get them all trained in and sworn in, and we'll go from there. But very excited to have so many young people interested in getting involved in this. This is their first experience with county board, many of them. So I appreciate you welcoming them here and giving them this opportunity. I might be reaching out to some of you to serve as mentors for the youth who sit on the board. I would like to have them maybe sit with you and act as role models and mentors and walk them through the agenda, explain things if they don't know what they're talking about, and kind of help them through things. So I'll be reaching out to some of you in the near future about that role. I appreciate it. What's that? They're gonna come to, I have 2 for forestry, 2 for human services, and I have 2 for finance right now. So they'll be hopefully starting
Those
to.
finance people know what they're in for?
I hope so. I've given them a little heads up, but.
They'll need a half
I
day
don't think they
vacation.
get off school that long.
Well, are those all gonna be at 7 o'clock in the morning? That was their concern.
I think it's great. I think it's great that there's enough, this youth in there. I really do. I think it's great that youth want to be involved in this.
Well, welcome.
Yeah, welcome to it. Okay. Think any other public comment? If there is none, we'll move to number 9. We're gonna move to the Navarno.
I'll take the long way around.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you for putting me on the agenda tonight. Tell you a little bit about who I am and where I'm from. So my name's Chad Young. I'm the CEO of Norvado. We're based in Cable. We currently serve Bayfield, Ashland, Sawyer, Price, and Douglas counties, or at least some portion of those. We are about 100% fiber to the home provider today. We serve about 15,000 customers. We have about 80 employees, and if you do want any other information on Norvado, please go to our website, norvado.com. You can see what we offer for current products and services. Currently, our lowest offering, our only offering, is that we provide our customers with the fastest internet that we can, and that starts at 1 gigabyte symmetrical, so 1,000 megabyte by 1,000 megabyte. So I'm here tonight to talk to you a little bit about an upcoming program that's available here in Wisconsin. It's called BEAD, the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Fund, and that was part of the Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act, where they made $42.5 billion available to the states. Wisconsin is going to receive $1.055 billion, and that was their volume 2 was approved on July 29th. So the Public Service Commission here in Wisconsin now has 365 days to spend that $1 billion. And so they've identified eligible locations, and there are plenty of eligible locations here in Iron County. Just to give you a little bit of an idea, and the Broadband Committee knows I like maps. I always bring plenty. If you can see this, just illustrates where we have network today. And this is Bayfield County. We acquired Price County Telephone in 2019, and we built that all out with fiber since that time. And as of August 1st, we purchased ChoiceTel in Eagle River. And that is also a 100% fiber network. And so what you might notice on this map is Iron County is kind of right in the middle of our network. And so we've been looking at this grant program to see what we might be able to do. And we have been talking to the Broadband Committee since probably the inception. I think it was 2022, so for quite some time now. And we are in the process of putting our letter of intent in. That's what providers have to submit in order to participate in the BEAD funding. We anticipate the first round of applications is going to be due by the end of the year. We thought it was going to be by the beginning of November, but frankly, the PSC is a little bit behind in getting some of the things out that we need to have in order to complete our applications. There's a lot of stipulations on BEAD applications. We can apply for 75% of the project. We have to fund 25% internally, and you'll see that sort of impacts what we're able to pursue. When we first started talking to the Broadband Committee, we were looking at doing the whole county, and that was what we really wanted to do. Frankly, I just don't have enough cash in my wallet in order to be able to build out the entire county. So we've had to cut that project down a little bit, but I think what we have is going to cover probably the vast majority of the population here in Iron County. And this is a map of what we're proposing for our application. And you'll see it's all of these areas throughout the county. It covers 4,146 residential residences, and it covers 660 businesses. So it's a pretty large project. The total cost is $32.9 million. At least that's our initial estimates. And so it's quite sizable. We do think we have a very good chance of receiving this grant. And by the way, if anybody here would like to see further breakouts on what these areas are, I also have maps that show each of these individually so that you can see a little bit more granular detail on those. So some of the stipulations that we have to work to with BEAD, they're putting a lot of hair on this program, is that we have to have a low cost option. And so for Lifeline eligible customers or the Affordable Connectivity Program, which actually ended in April, that's everything, they pinned everything to the ACP. Now they're going to come out with new rules. But we have to have a low cost option, which will be $40 or less for individuals who qualify for that. As well as some other requirements. We have to adhere to Davis-Bacon labor laws as it pertains to labor rates. The thing I don't like is that they're going to put a lien on all of our assets for the useful life that we fund through this program. Some of those things make us a little bit nervous. And they have not released the project serving areas yet. So when I show you this map, this is our intent, is to serve this area, and this is what we're going to apply for in a grant. And if we receive the grant, we have a 4-year window to get that all built out. And that's some pretty sizable construction. So you can see this covers the towns of Saxon, Kimball, Guile, Mercer, and Springstead, or at least some portion thereof. And we're pretty excited about this project. We do think it has a really good chance of going forward. The reason I'm here talking to you tonight, frankly, is that one of the scoring criteria that has not been in previous grant rounds here in Wisconsin, which we've been very successful in being awarded, is county, town, and anchor institution endorsement. And so I'm here talking to the county tonight to hopefully receive your endorsement for our project. We have been in contact with Mercer, the library in Mercer, the county health department, and I do have letters out to Saxon and Kimball right now, asking for their support as well. And so one other aspect of this project that we would like to bring in, but it is not contingent on anything that we're talking about here. I just want to make sure that you know about it because it would be included in our application, would be the town of Winchester, that's in Vilas County. And we have a meeting with them set up for, I think it's October 5th. And frankly, we're looking for them to provide some additional support if we want to bring that into the grant area. And so that would only be added should the town of Winchester want to work with us a little bit further on that one.
Do you guys want a Sherman in there?
Town of Sherman.
Iron
County. Yes, it is
Okay.
down in the bottom here.
If any of you kids live in the Gurney, Saxon, or Kimball area, tell your mom and dad you want 1 gig.
Here, I told the broadband committee this joke. We had a board meeting with my board, and one of my board members is a plumber. And I made a statement like, well, I don't think there's anything more important than internet to people these days. And he says, really, Chad? Not more important than plumbing? I said, my girls will go dig a hole before they go without internet. So in any case, there is one other aspect of the application, and that was that we are required to have coordination with local tribes and at least notify them of our plans. So we did speak with the Bad River tribe, and I don't know if this is very well known. We sure did not know about it. I apologize. This isn't a bigger map. I'd be happy to pass this one around. The Bad River tribe has applied for a grant through the Tribal Connectivity Program, and it would serve a couple of parts of the northern part of the county, but it does not serve all residents. The grant is only for tribal residents. And so I think if we move forward with ours, we make sure that everybody in those areas gets served. Otherwise, they are not planning to serve those at this time unless they go after some other grant or something like that. And so I feel it's important to mention that because we were just made aware of that about a week ago. So that was new information for us. So today I'm here to ask for the county's endorsement. I hate to bring it up because it is not, your endorsement is not contingent on this, but if there's ever anything the county would like to throw into our grant application, that always helps with our grants. We've been very successful with that in the past. I know that we're working with Price County right now on a grant. They've pledged $100,000, and we do have a town in Vilas who's planning on giving us $40,000. So I simply bring that up because if that's something that Iron County would wish to pursue, it helps the likelihood that that grant is going to be. So that's pretty much what I came to tell you, but I'd love to take any questions.
The corridor going down 77, you didn't say nothing about any of that.
No, and I'll pass this around, and that path is what we would be following. And really, this is, this more or less is what we need to do in order to connect our networks. And that's part of the reason why we're coming at it the way that we are. It also hinges on the eligible locations. And there's certainly a density metric that we have to bring into it when we're looking at the business case in order to do that project like that.
Well, I'm just thinking you have 4 or 5 other towns and one city that's in there that you're limited.
That's right. And it's not that we're eliminating them. It's just that we're not putting them into this grant round because frankly, I don't have the dollars to do it.
In the city of Hurley isn't included because it already has it.
Correct. Yeah, Hurley is not eligible. Only locations today that have under 100 by 20 service are eligible within the BEAD program. And that was actually raised from 25.3. I had a lot of concern Iron County wasn't going to be included because you do have a wireless provider that is stated that they can provide that level of service throughout the county. But we are happy that everything can be submitted in this application.
I think this board would very much support you. You've been the only one that ever contacted us. You've always been here. We can't support you with any money because we don't got a pot to piss in.
Understandable.
Okay.
The important thing is the
Look at Lord.
endorsement. That's why I want to make sure that's understood. Yeah, absolutely. Please.
I don't have a question, but if you're ceding the floor, I'd like the floor for just a minute.
You go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we provide a resolution in support of Novato's application, but if you count down in paragraphs, I would make a modification. You say in one of your documents that you allow modifications.
Sure, absolutely.
So paragraph 6, which starts, it actually starts here as, it should be whereas.
Sure.
Whereas Iron County is committed to supporting Novato's efforts and recognizes the importance of local, I would strike matching contributions.
Yep.
And replace that with letters of support.
Yes.
So that's a change I would put in that 6th paragraph. Again, strike matching contributions and replace it with letter of support. And then if you go down to paragraph 8, I would strike all of paragraph 8. That would say Iron County hereby pledges the amount of XXX dollars in matching funds to support Novato's BEAD grant application to be allocated from whatever fund and contingent upon Novato's successful receipt of BEAD funding for the project. Just delete that whole paragraph. So I'd make a motion that we would give that resolution to you with those 2 modifications.
I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Roy. Any other discussion? I think Novato, I think you have a good product. I see you, I work all over cable. You're really into cable. Drummond area.
You bet.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we've seen the benefit of broadband in
Yes.
Bayfield County in a big way. Highest room taxes that we've ever received have been since we've had our fiber network, and our economy in Bayfield County was expected to go down, and it actually rose 8%. So I think we can do the same thing for anywhere that has that type of connection.
And I know these kids buying it.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys will.
So if there is no more discussion, have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
We
coming.
look forward to working with you.
You would, yeah, you've always been here for us.
Absolutely. All right.
Okay, number 11, rezone from an F1 forestry. No.
Wait.
Oh, discussion action on the bicycle path presentation for County J. Who's giving the presentation on that?
Move around the room a little bit.
Becker
here.
Hoppy.
You guys look this way instead.
Do you have a point of
All
order?
right. First of all, thanks for the opportunity to come and talk today. Yeah, we'll dance around. I think Iron County's got a lot of exciting things going on. We're hearing tonight, right? And I think this trail project that we're associated with is also an exciting project here for Iron County. So we'll do some quick introductions here just to get rolling. So our project manager, Aaron Wolner, that you see up here in the top right-hand side, is not here with us tonight. He actually just welcomed his baby daughter late last week. So he's a little preoccupied yet at the moment. But he's managing the project. I'm Matt Grown, vice president of the firm, helping Aaron with the design and just all the other assets of this project. Cheryl, you want to give a quick introduction?
Sure, Cheryl Schroeder, and I'm helping out with the real estate aspect of the trail.
Yeah, which we'll get into here in just a minute. And then on the bottom, we've got ICOR and Mercer listed. Mercer was the sponsor for this feasibility study that Becker Hoppy was awarded, or Mercer was awarded, and we're supporting. And then ICOR has also played a huge role in this. So we've been working with Brenda Nelson there, Roxanne from Mercer, just to get this project off the ground and really rolling. So with that, keep going through some slides here. So a little bit more about Becker Hoppy. We're a small civil engineering firm located in downtown Wausau, Wisconsin, but we really serve the Wausau area north, right? So we're working in your area a lot, right? So do a lot of airport work, roads, highways, municipal streets, utilities, water, wastewater projects, real estate survey, dams, construction oversight, and kind of anything civil engineering related. Working at Ashland, Hayward, Land O'Lakes, Lakeland airports, just a little bit all over the Northwoods, right? Again, a little bit more about the project team. We've got Aaron Wolner listed here, along with Mercer and ICOR leads on this project. What this slide is just really showing is that there's a lot of people that make a trail project like this happen. We've got our subs, we've got the DNR, the DOT, the counties, obviously, Mercer, ICOR, a bunch of volunteers helping make it happen. So more stakeholders involved. This is kind of that same list and just expanding on it. And what it really shows here is that Iron County plays a huge role in making sure this project can happen and could be successful. So a little bit about what we want to talk about. We did an introduction. We want to touch on what the feasibility study really means, why that's important, our design for the project and project goals. And the important part here tonight is the real estate portion, which Cheryl will jump into. And then the ask, which is not money, so that'll keep your interest. Yes, no money. So what's that feasibility study, right? What is a feasibility study? Why are we wasting our time doing this? We're not wasting time, right? So in order to get funds from the state of Wisconsin, you have to do a feasibility study. You don't have to do a feasibility study, but it sets you up really well to get more funds from the state to support a trail project like this, right? It helps check a bunch of boxes, saying you've got your ducks in a row, you've done some planning, you've kind of got everything going the right direction, right? It helps WISDOT check those boxes. Along with getting that project rolling, right? It's doing that as well. So we had a kickoff meeting with WISDOT on this project about a year ago, give or take a month, and identified a bunch of stuff that we had to cover in this feasibility study. The design, the construction of the project, how it's going to get constructed, what it's going to kind of look like. The real estate summary, which we'll jump into here in more depth. Safe routes to school is a huge portion of it, right? So to be able to give students a safe route to school in Mercer, that you gain points basically for future funding if you can check that box. Jurisdictional report, just who owns what, where we're at in the world, and who's got kind of the say over some of these areas. Gaining public support is a huge aspect that they look at. They want to put trails in areas where people are going to use them, right? And I think the Heart of Isla system and everything that's kind of expanded outside of that now, even into Iron County, is just a great showcase of that, right? Environmental reporting, so how we're going to impact wetlands, everything in the natural environment, right, is very important. Utility reports, so if we've got communication lines going in, we want to make sure that we're working with those utility companies to make sure that we're not on top of them, gas lines, electric, and just work around those as much as we can. And then a funding analysis to kind of figure out what this project is going to cost ultimately in the long run. So that final report. So Mercer and ICOR did a great job kind of getting this project rolling even before Becker Hobby was involved. They had some goals with what they wanted. And really what we're doing is we're putting a trail along County Highway J, or from point A to point B would be Carroll Park and Mercer, to Windman Trails at the intersection of W and J in Vilas County, right? So this started out as about 9 miles worth of trail along County Highway J. It's expanded a little bit just because of some different options and routes and stuff that we've looked at. But we'll get into that more here in a little bit, maybe even on the next slide. So we took that exhibit, right? We made it real engineering, kind of nerdy, and added a bunch of detail to it, right? So what this shows is the trail, Mercer on the one side and Windman and Vilas County on the other side, and kind of how we're getting from point A to point B. You guys have all got one of these exhibits sitting in front of you. That really breaks each one of these out into some more detail, these areas out into more detail. WISDOT often hands money out in certain chunks, right? And to do this project in its entirety in a whole with WISDOT funding would be pretty much impossible, right? To get that much money at once. So we broke it out into 3 different phases. And they tried to, get some more information around each of those phases to give those a lot of support in WISDOT's eyes, right? And something that can actually happen to make it feasible. So the first one that you see is all in Iron County in phase 1, and kind of around that Mercer area. So I think a couple important things to note here are there is a good portion of this that's along the County Highway J right away in Iron County. So that's why we're here, is to kind of get into a little bit more depth on that. But then it also closes a loop within the kind of the city limits or around town. Provide a loop for families, right, that are staying in Mercer. It's something smaller where you're not going all the way to Windman, providing some access and just a smaller route there.
What is that loop? How long is it?
Oh, you're asking the question.
Well, if you don't know, that's fine.
Roxanne might know it. I
It
know
is
she spends
about
much of
7
time.
miles.
About 7 miles,
Close
yeah.
enough, yeah.
I've run it.
Yeah, what it is a combination of a couple different things. So what we're proposing along County Highway J is a multi-use path that's separated from the roadway, right? And this, we'll get into a little bit more detail, but we're doing that for a couple reasons. The speed on County Highway J is a little bit higher than a town road would be, and you've got more traffic, right? So we're trying to get that trail separated from that county road, right? I think that makes sense versus having it sit right on a shoulder. On some of these other roads, like Martha Lake Road and some of the stuff through town, Lake Road Drive, there we're proposing putting those pedestrians back on the roadway because they're very low volume. They're already paved, and adding a bunch of signage, some pavement marking to make it a safe place for people to be, right? You see this in Vilas County in a few places, and I'm sure Iron County's got a few examples as well, where you kind of got these rustic roads winding through the woods, right, that are paved and very scenic, right, and places where people want to be, and the reason they're coming to the Northwoods. And those roads kind of fit that bill. But again, the county highway portion of it, we're focusing on that separated multi-use path. So that's phase one of the project. We stopped at Beaver Lodge Road, so with that first phase. From there, we go from Beaver Lodge Road and through Cedar Lake Circle to the county line. So this would be phase two. We still have another chunk of the project that is along County Highway J. Again, focusing on that kind of divided path where we've got that multi-use path separated from the roadway. And then after that, once we get to Cedar Lake Circle, we're gonna take them on to Cedar Lake Circle is the option we're proposing. Today, this is a gravel road, but we're looking at options to chip seal that and then do some of the same on-road pavement markings and signage to give kind of a safe route there. A lot of the property on phase one and phase two is private property outside of the right of way, right? So I think this is something important to note. And Cheryl will get into it a little bit more, but you can't use eminent domain to purchase property for a trail, private property for a trail. It's just something the legislation doesn't support. So we have to keep that trail within the right of way if we don't have willing property owners to sell their land for a multi-use path. Once you get to phase two, you can see this kind of changes. So all of the green stuff you see here is actually public lands, right? So this is forest land that's managed a little bit different. It doesn't mean that we can just cut right through it, but we've got a little bit more flexibility with putting a trail or multi-use path on that property outside of the right of way, right? And really connect a few of these areas. I think there's Cedar Lake Circle is a beautiful road, right? Winding through the Northwoods again. So low volume, barely any traffic on it, only a few properties or residents that use that, but it's going right through the heart of the Northwoods. So kind of a good connection. So if we can get from Mercer to Cedar Lake Circle, it makes sense in a lot of ways. Let's see here. Phase three, we ain't going to touch on too much, but because this is the portion in Vilas County, but it does play a critical role in connecting this whole loop, right? So what this last portion of Vilas County does is connect a giant loop between Mercer, Manitowish Waters, and Windman Trails, right? So we can put people in continuous traffic or continuous bike loop around that whole area. It's connected. The heart of the Vilas system is part of this trail. It's something that a lot of people use. The Windman facility is something that's growing and growing. They're adding campgrounds, adding more trails every time we talk, right? And to have the opportunity to connect that to Mercer and Iron County as a whole, just again, it makes sense from a trail standpoint. So that's phase three. This one's a little bit different because we've got more of those public lands. Again, we're wandering kind of out into those areas, away from the roadway. A lot of the hatch stuff that you see here, these little dots are wetlands, right? And that's part of the environmental impacts of the project. We want to avoid those wetlands wherever possible. And we can do that by staying on existing roadways or closer to existing roadways as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl so she can talk through the fun stuff, the real estate side of that. So one thing to note before I turn it over to Cheryl is about 2.8 miles of this project, as we currently have it drawn up, is within that Iron County Highway J right away. So keep that in mind as we move forward.
Great, so when we started talking about planning this, one of the desires was to get, even though you had just going from point A to point B, is kind of along Highway J, there was the desire to be off of the road, somewhat, so that you're not necessarily, seeing the county highway all the time. But like Matt said, unless you have a willing property owner, who's willing to grant you an easement or even sell you that land outright, you cannot condemn land for a trail anymore, within the past 5-6 years. There's been some movement on that in that, you can condemn for sidewalks. That was originally part of what you could not condemn for. So, on those portions of the route where we could be off on, a different scenic road, like Cedar Lake Circle, that was the choice. But this is about connectivity, and we need to use part of Highway J to actually connect that route. When we did the Let's Get Looped kind of information session, we did hear some feedback that, hey, I think my property goes to the center line of Highway J. And so that was one of the things as part of this feasibility study we wanted to look at and see, what does that right-of-way document look like? And would there be any reason that it would say you couldn't do a bicycle trail there? Some of the property along Highway J has been platted off recently. Anything with the CSM, generally those lots go to the right-of-way and end there. So that, County Highway J, right-of-way for the road is pretty clear. But thanks to Casey, the Register of Deeds, and the clerk, they gave us the actual conveyance documents from 1949 when the highway was established. And that pretty much says, County Highway J, that land can be used for highway purposes. And then we look at the definition of highway for, as defined by the state. And that is for, just to make sure I have the right wording, it's for vehicular use. And then what classifies as a vehicle and bicycles fall within that definition of vehicular use. So, that's kind of what we looked at. Knowing this restriction of condemnation for bicycle trails, we talked to the DOT, just to get their opinion and their thoughts. And from their perspective, a separated bike trail is an allowable use within the right of way. They said though, because Iron County is the grantee, who holds those easements, that's really who has the say on what you can put in that highway right of way. So much like other utilities that Matt had said, gas, electric, fiber, it's kind of up to the county to decide what do we think is an allowable use in our right of way. And providing those amenities to your citizens of kind of a range of things, safe alternatives, are good. I think it's right before the eastern section of Beaver Road where that speed limit goes back up to 55 miles per hour. That gets to be pretty scary if you're biking right alongside the road. And actually on our way up here, going through Minocqua, we encountered a couple bicyclists. There was one section of 51, but it was 2 lanes. So actually 2 lanes in both directions. Somebody was biking on the shoulder, and so as a vehicle driver, I could at least move over way into the other lane. But you could see the drivers were a little bit apprehensive at doing that. So to have a separated path is safest for everybody, the vehicles, as in cars, trucks, as well as the bicyclists.
Yeah, something if you've got, right, an avid biker that's road biking 100 miles a week, right? But if you've got a family out on a bike trail, right, do you want a family right next to County Highway J, or do you want them separated off the path, right? I think it just makes sense. Again, that way you keep that trail separated if we've got the ability to do it, so.
And there are some spots where, there might be a UTV trail on one side of the road, and then we are looking at putting the bicycle trail, within the right of way on the other side of the road. We think everybody can work together and we can fit all the uses in, and, we've got bikers who are also out on UTVs and vice versa. And, just really looking at vulnerable users and the safest possible, path design, which is a separated use. So I think that about covers it.
Yeah, no, I think Cheryl hit on all the big points, right? And really the things to kind of hammer home here is that Iron County, you guys have got control over what gets put in that easement, right? You've got the say, and it's backed by some state legislation, right? That it's for highway use, and what are highway uses for? Vehicle traffic, and a bicycle is considered vehicle traffic. So that gives us the ability, the Iron County, the ability to say that we can put a multi-use path within that easement from the highway right away, so.
And it's really just the 2.8 miles to get us through that stretch.
Yeah.
There's really no other way through there.
I'm gonna bump through just a couple slides, and I think this just talks a little bit more about what we were just talking about here, Ryan. So then we get to the ask, right, and why we're here. So the county board, we're asking the county board to support the separated multi-use path within the county highway J right away. Not asking again for any financial support. That's kind of being ironed out all outside of this. And then some kind of support to include in our feasibility study. And why that's important again is the DOT looks at all these feasibility studies when they go into the next round of funding. And the people that have got these boxes checked, do everything from environmental stuff to safe routes to school to letters of support from the community. And that Iron County's going to back a trail like this. That's what makes the next round of this project even possible and successful moving forward. So I know we covered a lot. Yeah, let's take some questions if you guys got.
Casey, do you have any concerns about the?
I have no concerns about, yeah, there's no highway concerns on the bike trail B where it's gonna be located. We talked several meetings about it, and it seems to be a great asset to the community.
Sure.
My only thing was, is if there was able to have the highway department do some of the work, I would like to have first option at that, because we do all of our own right-of-way work. And that's my only question then.
Yeah, and that sets the counties up well for that too. We have to, if we get state funding for some of the work, and again, not to say we have to get state funding, we have to competitively bid the project, but a lot of times the counties are in a great position to win that work, because their bids are lower, you're close. The contractor's putting profit on it, or the county's just trying to do the work too, so.
And it's our property.
And it's your property, correct, yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't
That should be the overriding thing of all.
if you don't take state funding for portions of these trails, which may happen, yeah, we're looking at all kind of options to make this thing possible, whether that's a large donor or anything else. That's work that, again, the county can do, right? To keep it ready, so.
So do I have a motion on the floor to support this?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Tanner,
I'll second.
second by Roxanne. Any discussion? I just bought an e-bike. Okay, I did. I just bought one. A lot of older people are buying them because they want to get out in the woods. They can't walk it anymore. They can't pedal it anymore. But these e-bikes are huge. They're coming out.
It's expanded the I don't want to say the clientele, but the people that are going to use these trails, right? And you're seeing that all over the place, which is awesome. Again, different people, the ability to get out and enjoy the motorcycles is great.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I wish you good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, number 11, rezone an F1 forestry to a C1 commercial in accordance with the asset-based community development plan in the town of Mercer at 4362 North US Highway 51, Lake County Storage Solutions LLC owner. We need a motion for that.
I'll make that motion.
We got a motion by Karen, second by Pat Hansen. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Discuss action allowing the new Register of Deeds to come in for training. Danny Soin recommended to us that if the girl that is running wins and pretty much she's the only one running, it would be to the county's advantage to have her come in a couple weeks early. There's some stuff that the deputy doesn't know. And Danny feels that she should come in and when they come to Kurt at the finance for a couple, I think 3 weeks. I think it came to 3 weeks.
With a max of 128 hours and 90% wage.
Yeah. Would I have a motion for that? Anyone make a motion?
Well, it's not like a position where, because he would be unelected after the election.
Yeah, no, Danny's gonna do it before she goes. She'll get elected in November. Danny's leaving in January.
Right.
It was asked if he'd come in after
Well, that
he's
was-
done and Dan said no. No, absolutely not.
All right.
So
Wasn't sure if he was opposed to that or not.
I have
anyway,
some discussion, but I'd like to wait till there's a motion.
yeah, is there a motion? Okay. Motion by Bill. Do I have a second?
I'll support it.
Scott, second. Discussion.
So in the WCA training, one of the sessions, the Register of Deeds was one of the presenters. And it was basically talking about the role of elected officials. And one of the topics that came up was transition between an older or a formerly elected and a newly elected official. And given that we had had this conversation in our finance meeting, I asked the question of how most counties do this transition. And I was present at the finance meeting and I voted for this, but I feel I have new information now. Her answer was that the training typically occurs through the state resources and is typically not paid. So I guess at this point, I have new information and I feel differently about it than I did in the finance meeting. They have like 2 different trainings that occur after the first of the year. She also said that the vendor for the Register of Deeds software will sometimes offer training free as well. So there are several, and the person typically in the other counties just comes in ahead of time and trains, but isn't paid if they want to start earlier.
Any other discussion?
So the newly elected person just comes in on their own
Yep.
in other counties.
Right.
I think it's kind of goofy. I mean, are you going to do this with every
How would
position,
you feel about that,
sheriff, clerk?
Kristen? How would Kristen have felt if we'd have just thrown her
Yeah,
in the
we
house
just
in
throw
November?
Kristen into the wolves.
I've done
Yeah.
it multiple times.
Yeah.
So
You were happy they came in early.
honestly, in some ways, then you don't pick up the other individuals' possibly bad habits, I guess, or maybe incorrect ways of doing things. I mean, if you look at it in that aspect, I guess. So
There may be a strong write-in candidate.
Could be.
Okay, got a motion and a
Did
second.
finance make a recommendation for the extra 3 weeks of pay?
Yes,
Yes, we did.
that's right.
Makes sense. Thanks, Scott.
We do have new information that we learned, and we learned a lot in this conference. So I was a part of that discussion, but I mean, in general, learned a lot about different ways of doing business.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor?
I,
Opposed?
No.
No.
Okay.
Well, I don't know.
Wait, we got
Anybody
to
get
do
a
hand
count on
roll
that
call.
one?
Mullard,
Yes.
Loretti,
No.
Francis,
No.
Youngs,
Yeah.
Thomas,
Yes.
Hager,
Yes.
Schwartz.
Yep.
Crawl,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Erickson,
yes,
Bose,
No.
Flower,
No.
Luchin,
No.
Hiller,
No.
Wolf.
Yes.
8-6.
8-6, motion carries. Okay, number 13, discussion action on the 2024-2025 budget, and I'll turn it over to Kurt. Increase, were you going to run through it?
Yeah. So I gave you a 2-page handout. I'm just gonna do this real quick, but I think it's important to understand the context of the structural deficit. So the first page says model of structural budget deficit. And why is it called a structural budget deficit? I think largely it's just because revenues for the county don't keep pace with reasonable operating expenses. So there's a built-in deficit each year we gotta address. Iron County's not alone, all counties and municipalities, they're saving some version of the same problem. But if you look at that first page there, if expenses went up 2.5% on a $16 million budget, the county needs $400,000 of revenue each year to balance and remain even. If wages and health insurance comprise 50% of the budget and those costs go up 3% and other costs go up 2%, you have your 2.5%. That does not strike me as an unrealistic number. The question is where do the revenues come from? So this, assume the county has about 6 million of levy and 10 million of other revenues. Now we don't have quite 10 million of other revenues because we still have about a 500,000 deficit, but for this exercise, assume we did. You got the base levy, as you can see, of 4.6 million. That's limited to net new construction, which goes up about $40,000 a year. Then you have the debt levy, which is the one thing that the board actually can sort of control, and that increases or decreases by what the board set. And as I will discuss in a moment, we really haven't been managing that. We've kind of been just letting it float with whatever placement costs have gone up and down. But in this example, the levy goes up 3.3%, it equals about $13.68 per $100,000 of equalized value, and that generates $200,000 of revenue. Again, that does not strike me as unrealistic. The state aid and other revenues just don't increase much. So the state creates the counties to do all this work on their behalf and gives us all these mandates, but they don't give us revenue increases each year. That corresponds to the cost increases. If they had given us 2% increases every year, we wouldn't be having a problem. So in this example, you have this $165,000 structural deficit. If we started even and costs and revenues went up, like I just explained. When you have a structural budget deficit, one of two things happen. Either each year the board finds some combination of revenue increases or reduction in expense growth to balance, or cash declines. And as I've talked about before, the county's sort of been in a long-term cash decline. Back in 2015, cash balance was 5.7 million. We got 2.2 from Enbridge. Depending on how you look at the cash at the end of the year, it's declined 5 to 6 million over 10 years. Now, granted, not all that was operating deficit related, but there's no denying it's gone down. So now if you flip to page 2, and before I just want to talk about real high level what happened in the last couple of years. One is we had large inflationary increases, upwards of 20%, and that's certainly a number far outside what we would put in a model of what to expect. And while the counties accepted and took the net new construction base levy increase every year of about $40,000, it did not increase the debt levy to pay for any increases in other costs, like shown on the model. So we've been sort of living with the $40,000 number. In fact, last year the total levy decreased. Not making a levy increase in a year or year one has a compounding impact, because then the next year's levy doesn't start from a higher number. So if you look at the top half of that, you look at section A, you have the base levy, and you can see the 2022 levy was 4.929, then it's 4.573, 4.610. Doesn't go up much, $37,000 a year this year. you can see that last year, the debt levy dropped because placement costs dropped. And this year, I'm suggesting that it increase. While there's been some increases to the other revenue line items, overall, that's also declined primarily because stumpage revenue market has softened. The county has been using one-time dollars like Enbridge and to some degree COVID to pay for operating costs, and those dollars are now gone. And although referendum was discussed in the past, it wasn't acted on. But the combination of all those things, inflationary increases, the fact we really haven't been raising the levy, we've let it only go up based on net new construction. Our reliance on the one-time revenues has gone away. It's really kind of the backdrop of why the budget deficit ballooned from something in 2022 to 1.5 million in 2023 and 2.3 million this year. And in 2023 and 2024, the county plugged that budget gap with carbon credit revenue. Only this time that hasn't come through in the time frame we wanted it to. And I think you got to go back to the fundamentals if you look at sort of that model page. And you have to increase, I think the levy has to increase every year, because again, if you don't do it, it has a cumulative effect. One-time revenues, in my view, should be used for balance sheet items like reducing the debt, replenishing cash, funding future capital needs. Then you can have a conversation about it. But I think we got to the point where we were kind of using them for operations a little bit. So we're talking about levy, part of the budget process. Last month, we talked about the operating budget. We got to talk about the levy and the debt portion of the levy and get moving on that. And then next month, we got to talk about capital improvements, including highways, extra cash, plus payroll. But for tonight, it's about the levy. And at the finance meeting, they recommended increasing it $375,000. And I threw a little curveball in the schedule because I actually upped it to $415,000. The more I looked at it and studied it over the past week and all the things we've talked about, I really think if you go back and you look at the model on that first page, the levy just has to increase $200,000 a year, or you're never going to have a chance to balance your budget. If you don't increase it, then that number's $400,000 problem, and either you're trying to drastically change costs or you're hoping for something to happen. So that's my view. So again, finance recommended $375,000. I've upped it a little bit based on these numbers, and I look at that and I just say, it has to be the conversation that the county has that $15 per $100,000 assessed value, it just has to go up that much every year, or you're not going to balance. So I'm going to just see if there's any questions on that. We're not really making a motion to approve the levy because that comes at the November meeting, but we need to have some guidance because Kristen and Claire and I need to work through the debt side of it and get all the debt documents in place because it's all got to be done coming up here in a short period of time. Yep.
I have a question. You don't have the equalized values on here, right? But I know that they increased by 15%. And what that causes to happen is, and something I want to point out to everybody so they see it on the sheet, is on the second sheet, the county tax per 100,000 of equalized value, because that went up by 15%, what Kurt is saying here is that the county tax per 100,000 of equalized value actually goes down from $432 to $409 because that equalized value went up so much and spread things out. The taxes actually go down on $100,000.
Correct. So
even though we're increasing the dollar amount.
Correct. So two things I want to just reemphasize.
Right?
So, yep, no, you're right.
Okay.
The first page shows it's got to go up 200,000 a year, which is 1368 per 100,000 of assessed value. This year, I'm suggesting that number essentially doubles, because last year I look at that and say, we got away. We made a mistake. We had an oversight. If we had to do it again, we would do it different. Because if you never make that mistake back up, you never correct it, you can never pick it up. And part of the reason we started the year by 2.6 million is because the levy wasn't increasing. It was increasing based on net new construction, $40,000 a year. Inflation hits, one-time revenues go away, and this thing sort of balloons. Roxanne is right when she points out that so if it goes up 415,000, that's $28 per 100,000 of assessed value. And as she pointed out, the equalized value is decreased from 475 to 432, 409. That's because the equalized value in the county's gone up substantially, to her point. And this year it went up 13%. Now, not everybody in the counties, if your property's value didn't go up at all, you actually saw a tax cut. But nobody in this room has a property that it didn't go up. It had to go up. Almost for sure it went up, because last year equalized value went up double digits. This year it's 13. But there's some towns that go up more, some properties that go up less. In total of the 1.484 billion equalized value that the county has, on average, it's going to go up with this increase $28 per $100,000 of assessed value. So, we started the year back in February when we reopened the budget. We had a pretty sizable deficit. We're working it down, but clearly revenues have to be a component of what we're looking at. They just have to be. And so I modified finance a little bit. I apologize, but it's close for the reasons I said. But I think what we're looking for from the rest of the board is guidance to increase the levy that amount this year, so that we can go ahead and plug through the debt side of it and fill that out and have that all in place. So when we approve it in November, we're ready to go. That's only 45 days.
So we need a motion or just discussion?
Discussion, because we really can't set it until next month. Does anybody in this room see a problem with that number? Anybody? I think he's spot on. Okay, so we're gonna go with that number, Kurt. Plug that one in.
I've just plugged it in. Beautiful. So then the second part of that is, so I'm still on that second schedule. When you look at it, you see the base levy is 4,610,176. We just got that number from the state. Net new construction went up 37,000. So the debt levy is going to go to 1,461,572, and I can see I have a little rounding error there because I'm off by $100. But that's composed of three things. It's the Mercer Highway Garage loan. 2025 is the last year of that payment, and that's fully paid off. So that's the $215,000 number. It's Saxon Harbor, and it's what I'm calling CapEx 2024. So let me pick up Saxon Harbor first. Saxon Harbor, when a county takes on debt, statute allows for a maximum of a 20-year period to repay the debt. County's probably 5 or 6 years into that 20-year period, and we haven't made a principal payment, to my knowledge, on the county's share of the Saxon Harbor flood costs. If we don't begin addressing that repayment, we're sort of holding on to a ticking taxpayer time bomb. Because after 20 years, what's ever left on that loan goes on the levy. It has to get paid off. So the recommendation from finance is to begin today begin on January 1st, start amortizing that loan so that we can at least start making a dent to it, knowing we still have to manage that if we do get one-time revenues and stuff, so we can repay it in a reasonable amount of time. So the motion I would make is to modify the Saxon Harbor loan with Chippewa Valley Bank and begin amortizing the loan over a 20-year period. The term of that loan must be for 366 days, and prepayment must be allowed at any time without penalty. Larry Young's county chair, Christian Brandt county clerk, Clara Mackey county treasurer are authorized to sign all documents necessary to modify that loan. That's the motion.
I have a motion on the floor from Kurt Wolf. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a second from Mario Loretti. Discussion? I think it's the thing to do. We should have been doing it. Here we go. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Then the second piece of that, so if you go back to your schedule, you can see I have something called CapEx 2024. So in the past, or at least the past, I haven't gone real far back, but I have looked at the last couple of years. County's been borrowing for placement costs, and if you look at the debt portion of our levy, there's highway garage placement costs. Actually, that might be it. Am I missing something? And yeah, interest, right? And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take advantage of what's allowed to us and expand that to include some of the exceptions that are included in the state statute. One of those being you can pay for property liability insurance out of debt levy. You can pay for highway, county road construction out of debt levy. You can pay for court-ordered placement, and you can pay for capital improvements. So one of the things we did earlier this year is we set up a capital improvement fund. One of the reasons we wanted to do that is to take that, pull that out, be able to look at that because you want to fund it with debt levy. You want to fund as many things with debt levy as you can because it gives you the most options to solve your problem. If you live everything in the base levy, you get $37,000 a year to solve your problem. That buys 4 tires on a new snowplow truck. So it doesn't work so well. So you're always trying to shift and go. The CapEx loan is a short-term loan, although the term has to be for 366 days. But what it does is it allows us to borrow for those things this year. Kristen and I will have to work, we'll shift around the budget a little bit, but that $1,087,000 needs to pay. After you shift it around, you have to pay off the placement loan from last year, which is about $738, and then you got about $300,000 that reduces our 2024 budget deficit. So if you've been following along, we started at 2.6 million. We got her down to about 838, and this will take her down to maybe 538. We still got a couple months to figure out something else. So we've come away on that. So the motion I'm going to make is to borrow. Well, before I make the motion, does everybody understand what we're doing? And then next year, about this time, we're going to borrow for 2025. And keep working that. So the motion is to borrow an amount not to exceed $1.1 million. The reason I have not to exceed $1.1 million is because I'm working with the bank. They actually gave us a pretty good rate on the Saxon Harbor piece, and it was a little lower than I thought. That's why these numbers are a little different than they showed in finance. But the person that would be a long motion if I included all that. But the person I'm talking to, I had to leave for 2 weeks, so we got to wrap that out. That's why it's not to exceed. So the motion is to borrow an amount not to exceed $1.1 million from Chippewa Valley Bank for 2024 capital improvements, property liability insurance, court order placement costs, and county highway repaving. Term of the loan must be for 366 days. Prepayment of the loan must be allowed at any time without penalty. Larry Youngs, County Chair, Christian Brandt, County Clerk, Claire Mackey, County Treasurer are all authorized to sign all documents necessary to close that loan. That's the motion.
I have a motion on the floor from Kurt Wolf. Do I have a second?
Yes, I'll second.
I have a second from Roxanne.
I'd like a
Discussion?
discussion on it, please.
Yep.
Were these survey results, these were just given tonight to us. Were these results received in time for your finance meeting last
No.
week?
And there's more coming for October 10th. But it's not going to be in time to get all of this done.
I figured it's not. I just wanted to know.
I'd like,
Any other? Yeah, go ahead,
yes,
Roxanne.
I wanted to give my appreciation to Christian for getting that capital fund set up, or
What's the
Christian
survey?
and Clara, whoever set up the capital fund, and getting our capital outlay put into capital the way we need, and getting this set up so now we can do this sort of right sizing of this capital and debt. I think this is the way that it should be done, given my experience in municipal budgeting and financials. So I think this sets us up for future years, and I support what you're doing, Kurt, as far as getting this set up now so that we'll be borrowing for each year's capital with our debt level. for our debt
Subject to how much you want the levy to go up.
Correct, yes.
Any more discussion? Does everybody understand what we're doing?
Yes.
Okay, with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks for all the work, Kurt.
Yeah, Kurt has done a lot of work. And then this next thing we're gonna discuss.
Can I just take that for 1
Yeah,
minute?
you take
So
that.
Government Solutions LLC is a consulting firm. It was formed by a former county administrator who's been in business for a long time, or in county administration for a long time. He's a CPA. He's retired, but he wanted to give back to the profession, started a little business on the side. He's been helping counties work through issues not too dissimilar from ours. He's actually working right now for Ashland and Trumbull. Could be more, but I know he's working for those two. Actually, Steve Kobacki first gave me his name, but Wisconsin Counties Association. In the last month since our last board meeting, I've probably had 20 conversations talking to anybody who'll talk to me about our issue and how we can solve it. They put me in touch with Steve Corbelli at Government Solutions LLC. He's been gracious enough to give me a couple free hours to let me spill everything that's been on my mind. There's a consulting contract in your package. It's $130 an hour. There's nobody currently.
I apologize.
Oh, that's,
I just
oh.
noticed it wasn't copied.
Oh, no. Well, then we gotta talk about it. So finance approved the signing of the consulting contract. But we want to use him to give us some advice on putting together the debt, putting together perhaps how we might look at reporting on highway different, doing some comparisons between our county and other counties to see if we might be missing something. Could be on the expense side, but it could be on the revenue side. Making sure we've got things structured correctly. Could even provide some help as we form a referendum. My problem is I have done about what I can do for you guys. I didn't have experience in government accounting. And there are some things that's just not a good use of my time to go back to a basic government accounting book and try to figure out how to set up all these funds and make it work. And I'm not gonna do it, plus I'm not gonna do it. We need somebody to help us with that. Kristen's new, there's a lot of changes that I talked about in the audit that need to happen. I think they can help us facilitate some of those changes. I think they can help us do some of the reports that the auditors do for half the price. But I'm gonna say that our county right now has no employee that can provide the services really that I've been doing. And if there is somebody, please come aboard, because I'd like to hand it off. And you have to go through that. You have to go, if we're gonna truly address the things in the audit, we're truly gonna get our, address the issues in the audit, truly get better in financial reporting, truly solve this problem. We've made a lot of progress. There's actually a couple other good things that are happening. But you need some help to help you get it through. And there's just some technical things in government accounting I don't know. And I'm telling you, I don't know it. I have a basic knowledge of accounting and business, but I don't know some of that stuff. And we need help because there's nobody on board that can do it.
No, I talked to Ashwood about this guy. There's stuff that this county, maybe 15, 20 years ago was the way to do it, but now there's ways that this guy, he could skin this cat. There's things that we we're doing, maybe we weren't doing it wrong 10 years ago, but there's ways of doing it different now. Like highway, we have money and then we shouldn't have any. It should be there. I think this $100 and some bucks is money well spent. Like Kurt took us to where he can't take us no more. And I applaud him for where he got us to where we are now. He did an excellent job. Excellent. I think this is money well spent, so I want a motion on the floor to approve a contract with Government Solutions LLC.
I make that motion.
Have a motion from Karen
I'll support.
and second from Jamie. Is there any other discussion?
I also would agree with that. I think that there might be things that this government solutions contractor might find that will be additional things that will help our
Yes.
budget situation as well.
Yeah, I do. I agree too. And Kurt ran a business. A county is not a business, and this guy knows the angles. So with that, I'll say all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Now 15, discuss action to create, hire a county administrator. We've all talked about this. We're not hiring anybody tonight. What we're trying to do is see if you people think we need one, and we're looking for a job description of one, what you think we're looking for, stuff like that. I think we need one. There's this county boards can't do what they did 20 years ago. They need somebody here. There's a lot of us doing a lot of work, and we ain't getting it. We have to get all our information right. We're all trying to work together, but we need somebody on board, like Kurt said, that can handle HR, can handle different parts of it. So what we're really asking for is, do you think that this county needs an administrator? What do you think? Thoughts?
I think it's long overdue.
It is long overdue. You are exactly right, Mario. So what I'm looking for is have a motion on the floor is to look into seeing what this county would ask of their administrator, what jobs he would perform, how much do we think it would be?
She, correct.
He or she.
Is this gonna be a professional position, like a city manager type position? I mean, this is gonna be a heck of a lot of capital outlay to create a position like this. I just tell you, my sister's clerk at Bayfield, $159,000 is what their county administrator is getting this year. $159,000. I said $80,000.
Not all of them get that.
Yeah, well, Bayfield isn't exactly a rock star county.
159 with benefits.
Yeah.
Is that with everything?
No,
Health insurance?
no, plus per diems.
159 plus insurance?
Yes.
So salary's 150?
Yes.
I have more discussion after we have a second.
Do we have a second on that?
Second that.
Okay, second and then discussion.
So at the WCA conference, I spoke at length with Nick Rinmer, I believe is his last name, from Price County. And he is their county administrator. He's been in that position, I believe, 11 years. I asked him when he first started in that position, when the county first switched from administrative coordinator to county administrator, how did that position get funded? So he said he had to come in and he had to find where those dollars would come through analysis, through budget analysis. And, looking at some of these ideas, I think the answers are all right here, right in front of us. Where are those dollars? And the employees have come up with this. So, I'm in favor of moving forward with this. We are one of 8 counties that are still left with an administrative coordinator position. And I think there's a little bit of confusion on who that administrative coordinator actually is at this point, because board resolutions say it's one person and some other people think it's another person, and I don't know. And, according to statute, the administrative coordinator, which is the lowest level of administrative positions for the counties. It says what it's supposed to do, and it says what the next level up, which is county administrator, what that's supposed to do. So statute outlines what it's supposed to do. We have plenty of other job descriptions we can piggyback off of from the other larger number of counties that already have administrative coordinators. And I think it can work through some of these cost savings that are already kind of laid out for us.
Any other discussion?
Even looking at, even some options, you know, with that grant.
Innovation grant.
The innovation grant and collaborating with other counties. I mean, some of that collaboration, there's money that can come back to us by collaborating with other counties. That grant is actually quite robust. And we could be working on a centralized dispatch. Not that I'm looking to get rid of dispatch, but maybe we take on the dispatch for the region. And then we actually get the funding from the other counties for such things. All of those types of things. So it's looking at how we best can to find money through grants and through cost savings. I think it's all here. I agree with Roxanne.
Any other discussion?
One additional thing, if I could add for a second item here, which is allowable under Robert's rules, and of course I attended. I think it would change a little bit of the dynamics or some of the challenges I think that some of us as board members are having, where we are putting an awful lot of time into this job because there isn't necessarily that layer that a lot of counties have between the county board supervisors and all the department heads. I mean, those of us on committees that are putting in an awful lot of work, sort of doing things that a county administrator would do, I think that would alleviate some of that as well.
I think it would help Kristen because sometimes
Yes.
Kristen doesn't know where her boundaries are.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? She's asking us questions where there wouldn't be no questions. But I'm in favor of looking at it and exploring it, but I don't want to action or do it. We're just looking at it. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. In number 16, discussion action to reform a referendum committee. The ones of us that were here before COVID, Scott knows too, it's always been talked about. The referendum, COVID hit, we didn't have to go to it. We're there now. Is there anybody in this room that don't think that we should go to a referendum? Is there anybody that doesn't think, that thinks that we can make it without going to a referendum? Good, because that's telling me you're all engaged, because if somebody just said, yeah, that thing, so we're all on the same page. We have to go to it. We can't form a referendum committee in our county handbook. You only can be on so many committees. We're all on them. I called up, the county board is the committee. The county board's gonna have to sell this to their districts. To each of their districts that you come from, you're gonna have to sell this. We're gonna have meetings because the public's gotta be involved. It's not gonna be a county board meeting. We're gonna have to call it a county board referendum committee or something like that. All county board members are welcome to participate. Anybody in the public is willing to participate. So we gotta have them, we're gonna have them real quick because we gotta put this, we're thinking April. Gotta be 45 days before something. Yep.
It backs up to January 21 or something.
It's gotta be in there by then, so it's gonna be, I'm thinking, we have committee, we see who wants to get involved in the public. Employees that wanna get involved. We'll go to each town meeting, go to each township meeting, we'll go to Mercer, we'll go around, try to sell to all towns. We'll try to have a town hall committee, we'll try to have something like that where they can call in on the screen, call in on a phone if anybody has any ideas. But each of you gotta sell it to your district. It's gonna be huge.
Can I just add one thing?
You
Mark?
go ahead.
I kind of see the referendum process maybe as three parts. One, you have to draft a resolution, the actual referendum. And Roxanne actually found some good language in another county. To do that, it'll just take a couple hours to clean it up. But number two is then you have to decide what's the number. That's what everybody wants to know is what's the number. And we got to work towards that because there's a couple different ways to look at it. But as I told the finance committee, what the number is what's equally as important in my opinion is that the debt levy has to get reset to zero and rolled into the base levy. And why is that? The base levy is what allows you to get that $200,000 increase each year in our model. The debt levy allows you to do that, not the base. And there's a finite amount of dollars you can pay for out of the debt levy. And we're starting to approach that number where you can't do anymore. You can't pay for salaries and benefits, $8 million out of our $16 million budget out of a debt levy. You can't pay for other things. So we're managing it, we're working it, but at some point, you can't put any more dollars, you can't pay for any more operating costs out of the debt levy. And so I've been talking to a lot of people too, and that really it's going to be happening in a lot of places where you have to reset the debt levy sort of to zero and explain that. Now it's going to sound terrible because your levy is going to go up from 4.6 million to $6 million, but the debt levy is going from 1.4 to zero. And to be able to communicate that is going to be a challenge. But it's really then what's the number you need to kind of reset this thing so we can kind of live off that base page I talked to you about. The reason I gave you the base page today is it's kind of the model of what happens in counties and towns. We're not alone. Revenues don't keep up with expenses. But when you look at that and you see $165,000, if that's what we have to manage every year, that's manageable. This year we started at 2.4 million. And when we adjusted stumpage, it was 2.6 million. You can't have that. That's why levies have to go up every year and you have to do that. So we got to figure out the number, we got to do it. But the third piece of that then is, I think, the big one is how does that get communicated? I can certainly have a town meeting. I've been prepping my town through town, because I'm a town chair, through town meetings, and they know it's coming. Not everybody's going to vote for this no matter what, but we're going to have to go and have some persuasion and go out and figure out how to do that and engage and involve the public.
Yes.
So they understand our dilemma, because we got to turn the corner and fix that so you can go forward and operate that. You can't have years like this where we have 2.5-hour finance meetings and every week because you're trying to figure out how not to go basically bankrupt. That's a little strong word, but you can't. You got to be able to operate and do the things we should be doing, which are the services and providing services to people and all that other stuff. When finances don't work, it's all consuming. It's all you talk about. But when finances work, then you can focus on the things you should be doing. So to me, that's the challenge of the referendum.
And we have to make sure it's enough for the county's future. It keeps going up, not just to tread water. So that's a number we gotta look at. So we need a motion to form our county board referendum committee. That's what it's gotta be called, County Board Referendum Committee. Need a motion for that.
I'll make that motion.
Make a motion for Paul Muller. Do I need a second?
I'll second.
Second. Lot, any other discussion? Okay, with that.
And can I have one question? Who leads that? Is it just all of us? We're maybe
Yeah,
talk
well,
about it
it'll
every
be me, I guess.
So I guess we gotta talk about it.
Yeah. But we're just gonna have meetings. So with that, covering everything on this agenda. 2 hours and 10 minutes. This meeting is adjourned.
We
We beat finance. Bet you
How your day went.
How do you only come up with donuts?
insurance for nice.
Yesterday was good times.
You are right. You said that, you're right. But I don't think Danny.
Oh,
Yeah.
No. And I didn't mean